Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Itepokuian right here with you in the place to be, reviews. I'd like to thank all of my subscribers, everybody that's new to the channel, welcome. We're covering Prodigal Son, which I loved the first season, didn't have time to review it for the channel. We're gonna go do season 2 the whole way through, I promise you. Every episode we'll be breaking it down right here. I had the dates mixed up, I thought it premiered this week. So right now you're in for the season 2. Episode 1, the premiere. It's all in the execution. Let's do it. So if you're new to the show, Prodigal Son, you haven't checked it out before, and you're just getting ready to watch the review and maybe check out episode 2 tonight, it centers around a young man named Malcolm Bright. Well, his name was Malcolm Whitley, but he changed his name to Bright because he did not want to carry the same last name as his father, Martin Whitley, aka the surgeon, who was a prolific serial killer with 23 victims under his belt. Yes, he was actually a doctor, and unbeknownst to his family, a serial killer on the side. Bright was fired from the FBI after some questionable conduct and became a consultant to the high crimes unit in New York. Now, his boss is played by Lou Diamond Phillips. His name is Gil. He has a long-standing relationship with the Whitley family, as he was the one who arrested Martin Whitley after Malcolm told him that his dad was going to kill him when he visited their house one evening. Now that you know basic plot, let's get into season 2, episode 1. It's all in the execution. So at the beginning of this episode, Bright is out on a ledge. You see this man named Chester walks out there. Bright and him start talking. At first you think Chester's going to commit suicide. Then it turns out he's a serial killer. He has a knife. A scuffle ensues. He gets hung over the ledge. Bright is hooked to a harness inside. His backup, J.T. Tarmel, Officer Danny Powell from the High Crimes Unit, are holding onto this rope. The medical examiner, I can't remember her name, it eludes me right now. I didn't write it down because she really wasn't a big part of this episode. But normally, she has some funny one-off lines. She almost reminds me of like an Asian Velma from Scooby-Doo. But anyway, so Bright takes a phone call from his dad in prison. And of course, COVID's brought up. So 20 years from now, when people look back at this year and laugh at how dumb including this in entertainment was, we're all going to have a good laugh at it. Moving forward, Malcolm's sister Ainsley shows up at the police station and interviews J.T. Tarmel, the new boss of the Major Crimes Unit, where Bright works or consults. J.T. is filling in for Lou Diamond Phillips, Gil, while he recovers. But Malcolm and her have a conversation about their well-being after the events that transpired at the conclusion of season 1, where Ainsley brutally stabbed Nicholas Endicott to death, a very rich, affluent, powerful man who was not only trying to woo Bright's mother, but kill Malcolm and Ainsley because they discovered his plot to take out their family, kill his father. He had him transferred from his cushy cell at Claremont Hospital, where it was just him, to general population of a prison, but he has since returned to Claremont. The main case for this episode is the beheading of a wealthy woman, and they find out this woman, Millie, was killed by a guillotine, and Bright has to go to his father to find out who's in possession of the guillotine in question, because his father has all the information about all these weird, eccentric people who are involved in this sort of subculture. Not necessarily killers, but just involved in this subculture, and especially the collecting of artifacts like this. So Malcolm goes to visit the surgeon to consult on the case because he uses his father as a frame of reference in dealing with the serial killers and the other cases that he encounters working with high crimes. And he needs his dad to locate the guillotine for him. Then Martin's new cellmate kicks his shoe off, hits Bright right in the head, which incenses Martin, and we kind of get the sense that his cellmate's time is limited because Martin is very protective of his son Malcolm. So Malcolm and Danny Powell go to the owner of the guillotine, who is this eccentric, like, BDSM weirdo named Izzy, and find it was used in the beheading by using some blacklight stuff, shows all the blood spatters. But also find there's an area in his basement dungeon that an extra brick wall was built while the homeowner was gone. Inside of it, chained to the wall, is a man named Boyd Hicks, who was the boyfriend of the beheaded woman Millie. He was their suspect in her death until they found him entombed in the wall, which Bright sledgehammers his way through to free him. Bright also does a bit of psychological torture to Boyd to get him to talk. He takes this opportunity while he's chained to the wall, interrogates him, and finds out that Boyd killed Millie's husband back in Texas. And Malcolm turns on the techno, starts shooting some nails at Boyd. I mean, they're sticking into this concrete wall behind him. Boyd confesses that he killed Millie's husband. Let an innocent man be executed in his place. And Bright, just as these first responders are coming in to help him, he takes this saw, and you think he's going to hack up Boyd, which of course he's not, but he cuts the chain, frees him, and then fire and rescue arrives, and Danny is informed that Boyd confessed, and they figure out that Millie's lawyer followed from Texas to New York, and that the police who handled her brother's case were dirty, buried some evidence, because of course they did. Meanwhile, at Claremont Psychiatric, the surgeon Martin Whitley is about to exact revenge for the egregious act of throwing a shoe at his son Malcolm. He electrocutes his cellmate Jerry, which you think it's going to kill him, but it actually fixes his speech because he's incoherent before, and after that he's speaking perfectly clearly, and Martin uses that as an excuse to tell Jerry's doctors he needs some kind of new therapy. So they take him out of the cell, and Martin has his own cell back again, just as he planned to do. This is the cerebral approach that this man takes to everything, and that's what I really love about the character. Upon returning home, Bright receives a phone call from Danny Powell, and she's informing him of the name of the executioner in Texas. Now, the executioner was actually an executioner. He was the man that was responsible for putting Millie's attorney's brother to death as he was wrongly accused of the murder. Remember, the police bury the evidence. It turns out he's in Bright's house. So Tom is the executioner's name, and as they kind of have a back and forth conversation, he starts messing around with Bright's medieval weapons collection. He's demanding that Bright let Natalie go. She is the attorney of Millie, who is trying to exact retribution for her brother's wrongly being killed for a murder he did not commit. So he says he's been watching Malcolm. This is Tom. He says he's going to kill Malcolm, and Bright is granted last words, which he uses to tell Tom that his call is active to Powell, and they now have Tom confessing to multiple murders, and Bright starts to shred Tom with a sword while Tom attacks with an axe. And this was a really cool scene. At the end of it, Bright just completely eviscerates him. Like, doesn't kill him, but slashes him 3-4 times, enough to incapacitate him, take him down. He's got him at sword point. So it's at this moment that Danny Powell enters, gun drawn, says, drop the weapon. Bright says he doesn't have a weapon. She says, not him, you. And then we go downstairs where JT, remember, he called Powell. I didn't mention it. He was running a few minutes behind her and arriving to Bright's residence. And this is where we run into some problems with this show that I have not seen before. And if there was any inclination of wokeness, it was very subtle. This, on the other hand, was not. You know, there was one instance earlier in the show where Danny Powell referenced her ethnicity in relation to opportunity, and it was very subtle. It was one-off. Okay, that's fine. But then the fucking show has its first true moment of wokeness, and I say this as someone who loves the show dearly, and it was so ham-fisted that I needed extra lube. JT, who is black, is on his way to Bright's apartment to assist Powell in the apprehension of Tom, the executioner. He's assaulted by a uniformed police officer who's white, of course, and the other officers all have guns drawn on JT as he tries to identify himself as a police officer. But of course, a scuffle ensues, and one of the uniformed officers throws JT against a wall, choking him with his forearm and his nightstick, and says, stop fighting, boy. Of course they have to fucking include this, and fucking of course it has to be a chokehold. I mean, can we just not? Please, can we not? What happened last year was horrible. Inexcusable. Inexcusable. The police officers involved, garbage. I will say that. Now, that being said, a lot of my family is law enforcement, and there are a lot of good police officers out there. So for this show to take this stance unnecessarily when it's never done anything like this before is absolutely asinine. It's a mistake. But when I watched the end credits, I saw it's a Berlanti production, and then go fucking figure. I just hope it stays away from this the rest of the season, and this is a one-off, but I have a feeling that this is not the last we're going to see of the wokening in this show. We return to the station where JT is visibly shaken, and with good reason. He just had an altercation with another police officer, and he is worried his career is over. Gil shows up in the door and assures him everything is going to be good because he is a great cop. He did nothing wrong. Tells him to go home, kiss your wife, tell her you caught the bad guy. And that I love the way it was handled, because it wasn't ham-fisted, like, oh, there wasn't no, race thrown in this scene in the conclusion of this part, which I'm sure they're going to revisit, of course, because it'll be an ongoing case between two officers, which I hope they don't go with some stupid subplot where this other cop is out to get JT. But to be honest, I was watching it going, he's identifying himself as a police officer. Have him put one hand up and tell him, I'm going to show you my badge, or have one of the officers approach him, show him your badge. Okay, there, cool, you're a cop. We apologize. It was a mistake, heat of the moment. We're trying to apprehend a killer. But I just really hope that this trend does not continue. Bright goes to visit the surgeon, and he and Bright are discussing the cover-up of Endicott's death, who was going to kill Jessica and Ainsley, as I mentioned earlier, and in all likelihood Malcolm, and have someone kill Martin as well. Martin is going through what he knows about Malcolm and his feelings regarding killing Endicott, and how it feels to get away with murder. And Martin tells him that he knows that it feels good being able to walk around on the street knowing you got away with it. It's the best rush there is basically what he's telling him. And you see it in Bright, as during the show they have these moments where he'll see his reflection and he'll see his father smiling this sinister smile. And it's really cool setup, because you see during this, like when Bright sleeps, he has to sleep restrained to the bed with a mouth guard in, because he sleepwalks. He's went out on a ledge. He's almost fall. It's insane stuff that he does in his sleep, but it's all due to the trauma he endured as a child, having a serial killer for a father, basically, which really lends credence to the show and his character. Overall, I thought this was a great season premiere up to the point where it went on the last train to Wokesville and stayed there for a bit too long for such a good show. I honestly thought this show was better than that. It has an organically diverse cast, and while their ethnicities are mentioned and referenced, it's never been played quite like this. The whole police brutality situation being addressed in such a blatant manner, with a chokehold, the word boy being used. It wasn't uncomfortable to watch. It was just an unneeded addition to a show that has a solid trajectory, a great cast, and overall a really cool theme to it, with the dynamic between the surgeon and Malcolm and his sister, his mother, Gil, JT, Danny, the main cast, and the young lady that plays the medical examiner, whose name eludes me and I'm too lazy to look it up right now, because as I'm recording this, I'm late for work, so I'm sorry. But she's going to have to wait until next episode.